Merry Christmas. Merry
Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry
This
Christmas,
is
Megan.
our last discussion of the year.
Hmm.
And so it is action packed. And so I think we should just jump off.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Brianna tells me we do too much banter back and forth sometimes.
Yeah.
And so this is me trying to keep a lid on it. You know what I mean?
Best
Okay.
we can. That's hard for us.
I know banter is what we do besides getting stuff done for people.
Right.
All right.
Makes it fun.
So we got a couple things on topic today. One, and these are things that have come up in the last few weeks. You had mentioned you had a situation where the buyer had to change the type of financing they were getting, and the seller's agent was like, nah, here's cancellation. See you later. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk
Yep.
about FHA spot approval for condos and townhomes that are
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
approved.
Yep.
Last, we're going to talk about the so crazy path that the interest rates are on and something I sent you on Instagram. Okay, so let's go. Numero uno is that when you write an offer on the first page, and Brianna has a great series on everything that offers say. She has a whole series. She's just finishing it up. And so you can look up Brianna Shigo on her YouTube or Instagram, and she'll tell you about every single page of the contract says. But there is a specific paragraph. So let's say you enter into a deal as a buyer and you say you're going to do 10% down conventional financing. Well, as it turns out, your rate would be much better if you did FHA. So you're like, what was I even thinking? I'll switch it to an FHA. And so the listing agent finds out you're doing FHA and they're like, no way. We don't want you to do FHA. We didn't agree to FHA, so we're going to cancel this escrow. And so I'm here to explain this to everybody, okay? So whenever you have a question, you should always look at the what? The contract. The contract dictates everything to do with everything. And here's
Hmm.
what it says. Buyer stated financing. It says the seller is relying on the buyer's representation of the type of financing specified, including but not limited to, as applicable, all cash, amount of down payment, contingent or non-contingent loan. Seller has agreed to a specific closing date, purchase price, and to sell to the buyer in reliance on the buyer's specified financing. So it's making a statement. It says, hey, we accepted your offer based on what you told us. And not only do we accept the type of financing you were getting, we also accepted, a price and a closing date, and that sort of thing. So this is the important part. It gets more important as the paragraph goes on. It says buyer shall pursue the financing specified in this agreement, even if buyer also elects to pursue alternative form of financing. Seller, so it says, hey, you got to do your best to get the financing that you've specified here, but you can also pursue alternative financing. So something other than what you've already agreed to do.
Hmm.
It says that the seller has no obligation to cooperate with the buyer's efforts to obtain financing other than the financing specified in the agreement. Okay, so it's saying, hey, listen, if now you're going to do FHA or VA and they're going to check my heater and my heater doesn't work, and now they're saying that it has to work, the seller's not obligated to fix that just because of the financing if you haven't already worked on that prior to that with the seller. Okay, it says seller has no obligation to cooperate with the buyer's efforts to obtain any financing other than what's specified in the agreement, but shall not interfere with closing at the purchase price on the close of escrow date, even if it's based on the alternative financing. Okay, so it says the seller is not obligated to participate with any additional, things that they have to
Hmm.
do to obtain that financing. But at the same time, the seller cannot interfere. If the buyer is doing their best to get it done and they do get it done and everybody's, being reasonable, then it's best to just move forward with that buyer. The buyer's inability to obtain alternative financing does not excuse the buyer from the obligation to purchase the property and close escrow as specified in this agreement. So it says if you could qualify for your additional, your initial financing, then you still have to rock and roll with that. So,
Okay.
bada boom, there it is.
Well, it makes sense, right?
Yeah. It's like, why give these buyers a hard time? This is what I say to people. Listen, it's really hard to pick an offer when you have a bunch of offers and the seller's like, all of these buyers are amazing. I wish I could sell my house to every one of them, but now I have to pick one. And so sometimes the sellers say, well, this one seems the most qualified because they have a huge down payment or something. But in reality is you can have a huge down payment and still not qualify.
Absolutely
So
true.
you're either
Yes.
qualified for a loan or you're not. You're either qualified
That's, yep.
95% or 25%. It doesn't matter. Qualified is
Well,
qualified.
it's a very good point. I think a lot of people really misunderstand that because unlike 15 years ago, we're not in the day where if somebody has a big down payment or a high credit score, they're automatically approved or qualified for a house. That's just not true. And so I can tell you, I've got several buyers every year that they've got 30, 40% downs, and I'm sweating it out. I think they're nip and tuck, man. It's a tight deal. And I've got some buyers that are 3.5% down FHA. They're the easiest deal in town.
Right.
And so the perception that a big down payment is a easier loan or they're more qualified or more able to close is a fallacy. It's not true.
That's
It's
right.
just not.
Agreed. I just, things have just been so upside down, in the whole world and there's still loan officers out there that don't know what they're doing. My worst nightmare of a deal this year, my worst nightmare was when the loan officer counted the bonus income as income, and they swore up and down. The buyer even, this is like, talk about the blind leading the blind. Okay, the buyer even removed all of their contingencies. Okay, and at the last hour, surprise, the bonus income is not within the guidelines to be used, and so they had to get a co-signer. But it's like, are you guys kidding? Yeah. If I was a loan officer, I would have certainly known that, like, right off the bat. So that's why I just get everybody cross-qualified through you anyway. It's
and
like,
they should, right. Now we had a deal, it was a cross qual. Sometimes on your listings, I'll cross qual those buyers just to vet them, make sure they're still qualified buyers.
Yeah.
Before you accept an offer. And I'm happy to do that. And we had one recently where it was a complex deal, but that's okay. But I got the tax returns and they had an S corp, which was self-employment income, and then they had a foreign corporation was foreign income, and on their 1040 tax return, that foreign income was at a huge loss, like to the tune of like $300,000 in losses.
Right.
And so they don't qualify for the house. And so I did the cross qual, and the loan officer was only counting the income on the S corp and not looking at the loss of the income on the other company. And I said, they don't qualify. And she said, how? And I said, because they lost 300,000. Because, well, I'm not counting that. I said, well, underwriter's going to count it.
Live in a land of make believe. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't write everything off and also use it to qualify for purchase. It's just a lot of silliness out there still. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, which is spot approvals for condos and townhouses. Condos and townhouses, I mean, this is going to turn into really a specialized skill set for realtors, because it's like going through levels of Jumanji. It's like, what is possibly going to go wrong now? So tell us what you're seeing and how to handle it on the finance side.
Yeah, it's a great point. I'm seeing a lot of this, and you have to look at what's happening within the condo association approvals with respect to Freddie and Fannie. And so they have recently changed their guidelines with those approvals and making those approvals much more difficult. And so we have these situations where someone gets into escrow, then there's an issue with the HOA and they can't get that approved. because the FHA, I'm sorry, Freddie and Fannie will classify that it was what's called a non-warrantable condo, which means it's not eligible for standard financing. And so the listing agent will argue that, yeah, but we just closed the deal there 2 months ago. I know, but that was a different guideline. It's different now. But what people don't know is because a lot of people can't, there's a couple of things here in play. First of all, a lot of lenders can't do it. And then most loan officers in our business don't understand how to do it. And they're not sure what the guidelines are. So they don't know. It's like they don't know what they don't know. And
Right.
so you have these challenges and no one knows how to solve it. And so here's the fix. There's a little known program called an FHA SPOT approval. But here's what this means. With every condominium association, at some point when the project was built, FHA approved the entire project. Over the years, FHA put expiration dates on those projects. And then so unless the association resubmitted financials, all their documents again, those projects expired and are no longer eligible for FHA financing. But FHA has a program called a spot approval. And so we can actually process those documents and submit that directly to HUD as a one-off, just to approve that one particular unit, not the entire project, but just that one property, just that one unit. And so there's a process behind that. You know, there's a certain skill set to know how to do that. And it actually works really, really well. And so when we do those, the buyer gets a much better rate. And you can have a lower credit score and a lower down payment. So it's a really, really good loan. And I'm doing more of this now, thankfully. And it's a pretty cool thing, actually.
Yeah, you guys are really, really fast at that and getting it done. And these HOAs that don't stay on top, I mean, I always joke around, not joking, that the HOAs have a meeting every year, all the HOAs across the country, and they have a meeting and they say, listen, nobody do anything really well. Everybody, let's take a long time to answer questions. Let's be evasive. Let's be unavailable and keep the bar low so that nobody gets their expectations exceeded. And that is HOA management. I'm sorry to say it, but it's the truth. I have rarely ran into anybody that is doing anything better than a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. And so you as a homeowner, when you own a property in an HOA that's attached units like condos or townhouses, you have to stay on top of your HOA, the budget, what they're spending the money on. Do they have enough money in savings? Do they have the right insurance policy? I mean, the list goes on and on. Otherwise, they're not approved for FHA. And that is a huge section of the population. I mean, who do you think mostly buys entry level homes like condos or townhomes? First time home buyers.
First time buyers.
For God's sakes. So I'm glad that you've got this spot approval thing. And, you know, FHA has been a better loan for our borrowers, a lot of them for the last couple of years. The rates have been more attractive. So it's nice to have that as an alternative. So thank you for staying on top of that and sharpening your HOA spot approval tools so you can get it done.
Thank you. That's pretty cool. I like it. Thank you.
Last thing is last for the year. This is our last thing we're going to say for all of 2023. And that was, I screenshot a loan officer on Instagram. I sent it to you and your head almost fell off. And he said, hey, everybody, 5.99. That's right. Rates have reduced to 5.99. And so I feel like we're going to see a lot of this in the next coming weeks because just like it's unprecedented how rates went up, now they're like coming down pretty good. And so we're going to see a lot of hyperbole and BS out there. So how do we, what in the heck is this guy talking about? And how do we get a 5.99 interest rate?
Well, you know, we got to be very careful with that. And that's a good point. And what bothered me is, you well know, my response to that ad, there was no disclosures. There was that was so uncompliant. I mean, there was not an APR. There was nothing on that ad. And so that's a very misleading ad to a consumer because there's so much that goes into pricing a loan. It's loan to value, it's FICO score, it's loan amount, it's certain loan niches. And
certain
so when
zip codes,
someone's,
counties, I don't know. I mean, there's
yeah,
so
all
much
kinds of
stuff.
stuff. There's
Yeah,
like 6 different items that go into pricing alone. And so you can take a very small sliver of that market where maybe 2% of the buyers in the country might qualify for it and then advertise that loan.
right,
But that's false because now buyers think that rate is the new rate, when
right,
in fact they'll never get that rate.
right.
And so it's misleading, but that's why they're supposed to have disclosures on these ads for compliance
Mhm,
purposes, and it was missing
mhm,
all of that, which, as you know, really bothers me.
right.
However, the good news is rates are trending down. They are.
Mhm,
So it's something
mhm,
we're gonna watch. And every time we work with a home buyer, we're gonna give that buyer every opportunity to get the best rate possible.
mhm,
And so I like where this is going right now. Finally, after almost 2 years of this incredible volatility, we've seen, as you well know, we've talked about this over the last couple of years, the extreme volatility in the market. I think we're seeing now more of a leveling of that volatility, and
mhm,
it's fairly quiet, fairly flat right now, but it's more on the downside, trending downside toward rates. But
mhm,
a word of caution here:
mm,
nothing moves in a straight line.
right.
So there's going to be some days where rates go up a little bit. That's okay. That's
Mhm.
okay. I wouldn't worry about that. You have to look at the long-term trend. And
Yeah, don't
long-term
have.
trend is rates going down. But the other piece of that is, and this is, again, the ads are all false. Rates don't plummet. Rates don't overnight drop. And
Mhm,
so what I tell home buyers a lot is that when rates are going up, it's like watching a raging forest fire.
mhm,
When rates are going down, it's like watching grass grow. It's
right.
painful.
Yeah.
Okay, it will move down, but in very, very small increments over a period of time. And
Mhm,
again, that's okay too,
mhm,
because that gives the market stability.
mhm.
That gets rid of some of that volatility by having that slower, progression of rates on the downside.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about these lower rates, and I know, that seems silly, but our inventory still has not caught up to, I mean, the last 2 weeks, but it was kind of weird because it's December. We've seen a few new things hit the market, but it's still not nearly as much as we would need. So now we're going to be in sort of a pickle again. So, I mean, just once again, I'm going to say this for everyone in the room here, especially the people in the back, that if you've been looking for a house for 2 years and you haven't found one yet, you need to adjust your expectations, and you really need to have a come to Jesus talk with yourself, because if you bought a house 2 years ago, you would have significant equity in it already, but you are probably too picky. You probably did not realize, what neighborhood you were going to be in, what size of house you were going to have. And ultimately, you've got to lock something down. This is not a trend that's going away. The house
Mhm.
prices are not going to plummet.
That's
We
right.
sustain double digit interest rate increases. And so I'm very nervous for you people for 2024 and being able to find a house. You need to get aggressive.
Mhm.
And if it means that you're looking at houses during the week after work, then that's what you're going to need to do and make great offers, because there's not going to be any deals out there. And this is 2024. I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous. That's all. Just because there's not enough for
Well,
sale again.
yeah, I think that's a fair analysis, because I don't see that there's a path to increasing inventory anytime soon. I think
No,
we're going to be in this very tight market where there's very few homes on the market. Even though rates are going down, that's not going to
mhm,
necessarily create a flood of homes in the market.
no,
But it will do is make more housing more affordable, which will bring more buyers into the market. And so now, instead of getting 5 or 7 offers, you're going to get 18 or 20 offers. And that's
right.
what I don't want to see.
Bingo. Yeah, that's too much. It's,
Yeah.
you try to price things intelligently, but ultimately buyers are going to bid what they they want to pay for the house, and
Mhm.
that's going to raise the values for everybody. So
Right. For
so there
sure.
you go. So do your best, do the best that you can, be honest with yourself, and just buy something that is safe and will be a happy home for you for 5 to 10 years or something like that.
Good advice.
I was that buyer and I made some mistakes, so don't do what I did.
I think we've been there. I've been there too.
I know. Well, Rick, I appreciate you. We've had 2023 was an interesting year,
Mhm.
and I appreciate you very much and all your expertise.
you.
And you're one of those people in my business, one of the only people besides, Chris and Brianna and my title and my escrow officers that I can lean on, and always has very good advice and perspective on things. So I appreciate you, and I wish you a Merry Christmas
Appreciate
and a
you.
wonderful New Year. And maybe next year Santa will get your kitchen done for you. So
As you can
year,
tell, I'm in my kitchen. It's still a bit echoey in here, but you know the story, but we gutted my house in December of 21. We have the cabinets in, pretty cool, right?
yep,
So,
yeah, you're making
but
progress.
yeah, boy, I'll tell you, I will say that I'm optimistic. It's ready for Christmas next year.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we'll all be there to celebrate.
All right, sounds good.
All right, take care, and we'll see you in 2024.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. See you later.
Bye.